So this is the first bike that I've ridden that comes standard as a mullet. So e-bike, obviously, Merida E-OneSixty 2020, Shimano Steps E8000 motor. You probably already know all the finer details about the motor, battery, 504 watt hour I believe. Spec front to back. We've got SLX brakes, killer, absolutely killer. People talk about the wandering bite point on the Shimano brakes. Now I have experienced it, but not for a long time. The bikes that I've been riding that have come with XT or SLX, to be honest, have just felt killer. The power is exceptional. I'm used to codes, which is great for people my weight. If you're heavy, if you're pushing 85 plus kilos, Shimano brakes are a no-brainer. Shimano brakes are an absolute no, especially if you want to ride hard or ride steep, long trails. The brakes, they're just excellent. Move on from the brakes. Everybody loves Shimano brakes. Bergtech grips. These aren't standard. None of this stuff is standard, or a lot of this stuff's not standard. The coil's obviously not standard. Bergtech grips feel killer. I like them. They're a little bit fatter than some grips, which I'm enjoying. I'm actually running the thick DMR Death grips on my bike, which I love. And I also really love the ODI Elite Flow. Elite Pro are really good. But these Bergtechs, thumbs up for sure. I put my handlebars on them. Race Face Chester. It had a joystick handlebar on them. I'm not too sure what the Merida handlebar is in terms of upsweep and backsweep, but this is a 5 degree up, 8 degree back, so good. I'm used to 5 degree up, 7 degree back with the Renthal. These feel great as well, so I'm happy with that. They got me in a good position to corner and control the bike, and everything worked well. So happy with that. Good setup. Had to dump the stem right down to the bottom. It's really quite a high front end. So at the moment, from the ground to the top of the grip, we're looking at about 1070, which is acceptable. It's starting to creep high. 1060 I like. 1050 starting to get a little bit lower. 1060 to 1070 seems to be my sweet spot. Fork, Marzocchi Bomber Z1. Now he's got the upgraded damper. He's got the Grip 2 damper, and it's the original Grip 2, not the new updated Grip 2. So 26 clicks of high-speed compression, and who knows, low-speed compression. But the spring in it is not. It mustn't be the standard Fox NA2 spring, because I'm having to run 4 tokens to get the amount of support that I want, and I'm at 98 psi with 4 tokens. So a little bit choppy. 97 would probably be great. 96 if it was really rough and I really needed that extra grip, or just didn't want to kind of go as fast, I guess. But 98 seems like the sweet spot for me. 4 tokens. I'd like to go to 170 on that fork, but not a big issue. I'm not blowing through the travel. You can see I've just moved that a little bit, but it was about there. So I've got about maybe an inch of travel left. Feels great. Feels great. Won't go into the setup with the Grip 2. Or if you want, 8 clicks high speed from open, 5 clicks low speed from open, high speed rebound, 2 clicks from closed, low speed rebound, no idea, just as fast as I can handle, more or less. Minion DHF, max grip, double down, front and back, heaps and heaps and heaps of grip out the back. DHR2 would probably be a little bit faster, a little bit more sprightly, get a little bit more out of the battery maybe as well. Rear suspension comes standard with a superdeluxe, just rebound adjustment and obviously volume tokens. I tried the superdeluxe with the megneg on it, and I found the best setup was 2 positive tokens, 2 negative bands, and I could probably go. I've run out of time, so I could go all day setting things up. I could go keep changing things and find the sweet spot. I think if you're going to go the megneg on your standard rear shock on the Super Deluxe, 2 positive tokens, maybe 3 negative tokens. So 2 negative tokens gives it really, really good, strong overall spring. 1 negative bands, not tokens. 1 negative band gives the spring just a little too much overall strength, so it's a little bit choppy everywhere. And I think if I was to go 3 bands and keep it at 2 positive tokens, 3 negative bands, 2 positive tokens, I'd get the best out of this shock. It'd be a little bit more compliant, a little bit more softer, and I could run it at the height that I'm running this, so the same ride height, which is at about 28, this might even be closer to 27% sag. I haven't measured it, I'm just going by what it feels like relative to what it felt like with the Super Deluxe at 28 versus 30 versus back to 29 and up and down there. So I've got a pretty good feeling of what the bike does in different sag positions. So it's a whole nother video to dive into with that. But with a standard shock, that's my configuration with a megneg. If you were going standard shock, no megneg, I'd say at least 3 tokens. He was saying at 3 tokens, 30%, he was blowing through the travel. I think 30% on this bike's too low. I think it's too low in the travel. You scratch your pedals everywhere. It separates the front from the back of the bike too much. It gives me this feeling like the back's not with the front. It's not. I couldn't handle it. I couldn't control it. It didn't give me any confidence. I was doing. It was really weird. It was like I had to be 2 different people on the bike. So I didn't like that at all. After I come up on the sag, it started to feel much better. So back to, if you've got a standard can, start with 3 tokens. It comes with 2, I believe. Start with 3 tokens, up at about 28% sag. If you're busting through the travel there and you're blowing the ring off at the bottom, either go up in the sag or add a token. But I think 3 tokens might be right. It might be right at about 28%. 3 tokens, standard can. Megneg, 2 tokens. Enough jibber jabber about the suspension setup in that context. We'll move on. Gears, 12 speed, XT shifter, XT derailleur. Now, derailleur feels good. It's not too slappy. It's actually quite a quiet bike. It's when I do this, you can hear something in here rattling around. But when I'm on the trail, I don't hear it. So I don't know whether it's cables rubbing around, bouncing around in there, or what it is, but it's kind of loud doing that. But when I'm bouncing around, I don't. You know what it is? I think it's just that. It's just that. I don't know. Hard to say. But I don't hear it when I'm on the trail when I'm slaying. So, not a big deal. The XT it's just crisp. I love it. It's so simple. I think because I've got an XT on my XT derailleur on my bike, running with all SRAM, the rest of it. The XT cassette, or this is an SLX cassette actually, but the Shimano setup is just quite click, 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 click. It's very crisp. It's a little bit more crisp than all of the SRAM gear. But I don't like that derailleur clutch. I don't like having to service the clutch all the time. I don't like that it comes loose. I don't know. It's better, but it's not great yet. It's. I think I'm going to go XT on my next bike, to be honest. I think I'm going to probably go on it. I think I'm going to. It's just more reliable. You'll never ever drop the chain. As long as you keep that tension right, you'll never ever drop the chain. Frame-wise, we've got carbon front, metal back, alloy back. It feels good. It feels good. It doesn't annoy me. I'm not annoyed by carbon. A lot of bikes just give me a feeling of it's tingy and whatever, and this just doesn't feel like it. Feels good. It feels strong. The front end's too high. Like I said, I've slammed that down a fair bit, and it gives me the right position now. But you have to be slammed down and a low-rise bar, especially if you're going to jack up the front to 170. You're going to want a low-rise bar, and you're going to want to slam. 40mm stem. A friend of mine said 50mm stem makes it corner better. I think getting the geometry at the back right, getting your ride height at the back right, makes it corner better. So I feel if I was to go a 50mm stem, it'll obviously lengthen me out a bit. May feel good, definitely may feel good. 50 is still within reason. I definitely wouldn't go a 60. So if you're big, this is a large. It's a 460 reach, 1239.5 wheelbase, so quite a long wheelbase, with a 439.5 wheelbase, or basically a 440 wheelbase, and it's a 1238.5. They're so precise. with wheelbase. So it's long, it's got a long chainstay, relatively long. I think perfect size chainstay, especially for a bike of this length. Fits me perfectly, doesn't feel too big. Seat tube is too high, so I'd like that seat down a little bit more. That's a 150 dropper, and it's perfect climbing height for me, which means it's a little higher at the base, and I can't get it any lower because it's slammed. So there's enough room in there to slam it, but it's just simply a little bit too high. So that's one gripe I have with this bike, but it wasn't high enough that it annoyed me. To be honest, it didn't annoy me one bit, but it is a consideration if you're a shorty. Room for a drink bottle, perfect. I had my full 700ml or whatever it is, Camelback ice insulated bottle in there. Works, no worries. Going to coil. You know, there's so much contention. Coil only works on certain bikes and blah, blah, blah. I've made it work wicked on my Transition. It's so good. It's such a no-brainer. And I've made it work wicked on this thing. So this is the Marzocchi Bomber CR. Standard, it comes mid-compression, mid-rebound. I got it changed to a low compression tune, and it was way better on my bike. Putting it on here, it's way better on this bike as well. So I don't know what it would be like with a mid-tune. I'm assuming it'd be rough as guts, exactly the same as what it was there. I've gone the exact same amount of compression. So I went one more, 5, and then went back to 4. So I'm between 4 and 5 on the Patrol, and I'm between 4 and 5 on this as well. It's perfect. Higher ride height, plenty of clearance on the pedals, and it's not too high that I feel a little bit awkward in steep stuff. It was still fine in the steep stuff. Choppy trails, no worries. Tight technical trails, no worries, but because it's heavy, you've got to be a little more careful, and you've got to be a little more precise and ride the bike, or else it'll ride you. So weight is the only prohibiting factor really on this bike. The wheels seem strong enough. I put a little dent in the back one, so sorry about that. But cush core, front and rear, doesn't bother me. At first I thought, nah, take it out of the front because it's too cumbersome, makes the front a little bit too heavy, but I think because of the extra weight, you're smashing into things, you want the cush core front and rear. Never clip my heels on these the chain stays or the seat stays. They kind of flare out a fair bit, I'm assuming just to increase strength. Never had an issue there. The wheels feel strong enough, the bike feels strong. The seat, this Expert Merida seat, comes with this cool little tool kit out the back, which is kind of in the way. When you pick your bike up, you kind of have to put your hand in a different spot so you don't push that and eventually break it. But that's not the end of the world. It's handy to have a tool. But the seat itself, it's not overly comfortable purely because it's really hard. But the shape of it isn't uncomfortable as such, if that makes any sense. So some bikes, some seats, the shape itself is super uncomfortable. This doesn't give me any pushy stuff on my bits. It's just a little bit hard on the booty itself. So he's got it at a good angle. I didn't change it, I didn't mess with it. There's something in the eye at the moment. It was great. This bike is so good, and alloy or carbon, doesn't matter. I would always go alloy over carbon, but that's just a personal preference. I don't like the fact that you can't recycle these. You can fix them. There's, you know, cracked carbon and stuff. They fix them, but eventually this will be landfill like everything else. So alloy, at least someone can scrap it and rebuild it into something. But that aside, absolute dream. Absolute dream. The motor was good. There's not really any difference between boost and trail. I just ran it in trail all day. Today I did, so I went up Merida. I just did a quick palette cleanse with the coil, make sure everything was right, or calibrated with the coil, make sure everything was right and it felt okay, and then I headed out for a big stint. So did a climb on Merida, plugged it in for maybe 10 minutes of charging, so it wasn't enough to get it back to full, but doesn't matter. Then I went out to Waterfall Gully. I did a climb up straight up the fire road, like 6 minutes to get to the top. Something's retarded from Waterfall Gully Road to Twisted Gum. So I dropped Twisted, went up, dropped 4 weeks, went up, went all the way to the top of the 4-course meal, dropped Ewok, and then dropped the Bullock Track, and then dropped another at Twisted Gum. So, and then the battery was dead. So I got plenty of climbing. That took me an hour to do nearly 1,000 meters of climbing. So it was killer. It's so much fun. It's so easy. Plug it in, go again. Obviously, reliability is an issue with e-bikes. The Shimano motors seem okay. This is the older Shimano, the E8000, not the new EP8, I think is the new one. So it doesn't clunk, it doesn't rattle around on the trail. The power's not exceptional. Doesn't feel like it gives you much when you're spinning it a little faster. It's kind of lower cadence, gives you the best power. But it's an e-bike. It's an e-bike, and you'll go all day. You will literally go until the battery's dead. And if you've got a spare battery, swap it out, go again. Loved it. 475 spring. I'm 74 kilos kitted up. Can't say anything else about it. Love it. Love the fact that it's a mullet. I don't have to bother about messing around with the back wheel. Some 29ers, some bikes are full 29er and they work. Other bikes really deserve a mullet, a 27.5 out back. So something to think about. Otherwise, thank you so much for letting me borrow it. It's killer. 165 cranks. I could go on all day about it. It's killer.